Greetings, pen pals. I have a new pen here today, and this literally is a new pen. This is fairly new to the market, very new to the market. In fact, this is the T2 pen from Moonman. It's a really cool looking pen, has a really cool filling system, looks great. And let's get right to it and go through it. So first of all, I have to say, this is a very, very heavy pen. It weighs 52 grams, 20 grams of the 52 is in the cap. There will be implications of that for some of you, which we'll get to a little bit later when I talk about how it feels to write with it, but it definitely is a heavy pen. There's a lot of aluminum, metal here, etc. There's just a lot of metal on this pen. Not a particularly gigantic pen. Here it is compared to a Pilot Metropolitan and a Lamy Safari. So you can see lengthwise, at least, it's quite a bit shorter than these pens, although it is quite girthy. The pen itself it has some very, very interesting styling. It's got these, like I said, anodized sort of brush matte finished aluminum. This is sort of a gray color. They do offer it in I believe at least one other color, which I think is like a purple. It has finials on either end, which are complement each other quite nicely. It's got a nice clip that's very, very functional and nice looking, but nothing spectacular about it. Just kind of an ordinary clip with a little teardrop shape at the end. It's got a clear middle part of the barrel where it holds the ink chamber that has Moonman sort of etched into the acrylic. It looks really, really good. I really like the way that etching effect came out, and I think it looks just super nice. It is a screw to uncap. It takes 2 turns to unscrew, and it does post. Now, here's the thing. This is a heavy pen, but it's also a short pen. I think this is way too short, personally, at least in my opinion, to use unposted. You may think differently, but since it's so heavy and 20 grams of the weight is in the cap, you may, if you're sensitive at all to back weighting, this pen will be problematic for you because it's a hefty piece of weight with like I said, a lot of it going on in the cap. The barrel's no slouch either. So you're talking about 32 grams of barrel, 20 grams of cap. So this pen has definitely got heft to it. Like I said, metal everywhere except for this little part right here. Another issue which some of you may have, this is a smooth metal section with no grippiness or whatever, and it is an hourglass shape. It's not narrow though, so it's comfortable to hold, not too narrow, but you do have the hourglass shape, and you do have the fact that it's smooth metal. So for those of you who dislike smooth metal sections, again, when it comes to the nib, I can't really talk about that too much. Mine was supposed to come with a Moonman nib, and when I opened it up, I was somewhat surprised to see that it had a Jinhao nib on it. So this is a standard medium number 6 Jinhao nib that I have on lots and lots of other pens. So I don't know why the vendor I bought it from swapped out the nib with the Jinhao nib. It's not that important to me that I'm going to complain about it or anything, or send it back or anything like that. But again, I don't know if this is going to happen to other people, but mine came with a Jinhao nib. But it was supposed to come with a Moonman nib, and it has an ordinary uninspiring plastic feed. Again, really nice, good-looking pen, etc. Now let's get to the most interesting part of this. It is the filling mechanism. So it is a spring syringe filling mechanism. So you might think it's a piston filler based on this. You might think that that's a piston turning knob and there's a piston here, etc. Not quite. So what you do is you unscrew this. Oh, and to expose the filling mechanism. And by the way, when you close this back up, you really got to tighten this pretty good, because I've had a couple times, if you hold it from this section and try to take the cap off, you're going to end up unscrewing the back. So you kind of have to get in the habit of cinching that down really good and holding it by the barrel when you unscrew it. Otherwise, a reverse thread here might have helped. That way you wouldn't have had that problem, but they did not do that. So you simply unscrew this end of the pen, and that reveals the filling mechanism. You can let me take the cap off here. You can then simply activate this syringe filler like so. that is basically it. In terms of disassembly, it's kind of interesting. You can obviously pull the nib and feed. The section and this barrel looks like it might be threaded here. As far as I can tell, this is glued on or something. So this does not come off, and this is not. You can't unscrew that. But this simply unscrews here. And you can remove the whole mechanism. You can pull the nib and feed and then completely flush this. So the fact that that doesn't unscrew really doesn't pose a particular problem. If you want to disassemble this further, you can push this through and put a little tension on the spring, remove this little knob, and then the whole thing comes apart. And then you could remove this. So it really does disassemble pretty much as much as you would reasonably need to disassemble the pen. You just compress the spring and put the little cap back on the end, and you're all good to go. And then this screws back in here, and here you go. That is your filling mechanism. So that's how that works. Again, a pretty nice, pretty unique filling mechanism, almost identical to the TWSBI Go. So this is a $20 pen from TWSBI that came out a couple of years ago that sort of reintroduced this type of mechanism to the modern fountain pen world. And again, virtually the identical spring-loaded syringe filling mechanism that's on the TWSBI Go, which is an inexpensive pen from TWSBI. In terms of other more higher-end pens, Pen BBS 500, which came out fairly recently, has a similar mechanism. You unscrew this rod here, you then pull it out, you then turn it to engage it, and then you can operate the filling mechanism. I'm not going to do that here because this pen does have ink in it, but that's kind of the way these spring-loaded syringe filling mechanisms work. Like I said, my only complaint, not really a complaint for me, but for some other people who are concerned about, who don't like to post their, who might find the pen too short unposted, and concerned about back weighting, etc. You really, this is definitely a pretty hefty pen. So like I said, it's got a pretty nice, unique filling mechanism, but let's see it in action now, shall we? Okay, I'm gonna fill this pen, and the ink we're gonna fill it with is Diamine Cherry Sunburst. So let's give it a shot now, shall we? Open up the bottle. And we'll unscrew the cap. We will unscrew the barrel. We'll get our syringe all ready. So I'm going to push that down. We'll put it in, and then we'll release it. And wow, there you go. That was pretty good. Let's try another one. And that's pretty damn good. So that pretty much filled mostly up. That's actually a pretty good amount of ink. And there you go. No fuss, no muss. That was a pretty painless fill. These spring syringe filling mechanisms work well. They work well on the TWSBI Go. They work well on the Pen BBS 500, etc. So I had no reason to think that it won't work well with this pen with this ink. So now I got an inked up pen. I'm guessing the next thing you want to see is how it writes. And you're going to see that right now. Okay, so this is a Moonman T2, but keep in mind this has a Jinhao medium steel nib. So the nib on paper experience is pretty much going to be what this Jinhao steel nib is like. I've had this nib on many other pens, so I've never really had an issue with it. I kind of like the way it writes, etc. But in terms of just the overall feel of the pen, in other words, you do have, and I'm not particularly picky about back weighting, but I will say this pen is pretty back weighted. and pretty heavy, which is usually not an issue for me. So if I'm complaining about it, anybody who has any sensitivity to that really might have an issue with this pen. I kind of like these smooth metal sections. They don't bother me at all. But again, if you're looking for something that's grippy or whatever, you're going to have an issue with that. But otherwise, I think it's otherwise a very comfortable writing experience. I think it like I said, it writes really well. Before I forget, I'd like to remind everybody to please like, share, comment, and subscribe. All of these things would very much be appreciated. But your nib on paper experience is obviously going to be highly dependent on which particular nib you have, whether you have the Moonman nib, the Jinhao nib, etc. I'm probably gonna, if I'm so inclined, I may actually replace this and put one of a number of number 6 nibs that I have laying around in this. But there you go. That is our Moonman T2. That's about all I have to say about this pretty nice pen for this moment. But let's talk about this ink for a minute now, shall we? So this ink is Diamine Cherry Sunburst. And this is part of a series. So Diamine came out with a series of inks that mimic the finishes on Gibson guitars. So we have Cherry Sunburst, which I just am writing with today. I have Honeyburst, which was covered on a previous video. You can look at the video for the Amazon Basics pen, which describes that ink. And then there's 3 others in this series. There's Pelham Blue. There is Tobacco Sunburst. And there is Desert Burst. We'll get to all of those in subsequent videos eventually. But this is a Cherry Sunburst. If this reminds you of another ink, both in name and look, it does to me as well. So it reminds me a bit of Monteverde Sweet Life Cherry Danish. So let's just give a quick look at that. So Monteverde Cherry Danish. So that's just to give you an idea of both these inks. They're quite similar. The Cherry Sunburst is a bit browner, but they're very, very similar inks. In case you're wondering, by the way, this pen is a Diplomat Aero Flame that I'm using with the Cherry Danish. If you want to see more of that Cherry Danish ink or that pen, you can check out my video on the Diplomat Aero Flame. So anyway, Cherry Sunburst, nice ink. Like I said, it's a slightly browner version, I would say, of the Cherry Danish, but definitely looks like cherry. That's what it looks like on this Rhodia paper. Let's take a quick look at what it looks like on Tomoe River paper. Okay, so once again, this ink is Diamine Cherry Sunburst. And very, very nice looking ink. I could see actually this. I can kind of picture almost a guitar with this as sort of the finish on the wood of the guitar. It's, if that's what they're going for, I kind of get it. Definitely get a bit of variation here and a little bit of shading, which looks nice, and it's just a pretty color. And I like it. I really like it. Really like it quite a bit. And I like it so much, I'm not even going to flush it out of this pen when this video is done. I'm going to keep it in here and probably use this for quite a bit. That's how much I like this ink. So we'll give a big check mark on that ink. Really, really nice. Well, I think that'll just about do it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. As we said, please like, share, subscribe, and comment. And until we see each other again, as always, have a great day. Bye-bye.